Well, good morning and welcome back to Rethink the Story. Now, today I have a phenomenal author and an absolutely incredible book, Exactly What to Say. Now, today I have the privilege of being here with Mr. Phil Jones. He is a best-selling author of Exactly What to Say, Exactly How to Sell, and Exactly Where to Start. Now, he had his business at just 14 years old and is the youngest recipient for the British Excellence in Sales and Marketing Award. Today, over 2 million people across 57 countries have benefited from his lessons. And as a result, they now know exactly what to say and when to say it, as well as exactly how to make their conversations count. Please welcome Mr. Phil Jones.
Thank you, Sabrina. It's a delight to be here. Thanks for inviting me to the show.
You're more than welcome. Now, Phil, for anyone who hasn't read your book, this is an amazing opportunity to start making some notes, because from reading this, we have in our company even been able to change the game up to close huge deals, but also really create that amazing impact with people. So I'd love you to share a little bit about what that book's behind and what the book's about as well.
Sure. It's a giant, tiny book is what it is that it takes the knowledge and wisdom and experience that I've captured from working in over 800 different industries, from training more than 2 million sales professionals, and realizing that the difference between those that do pretty good and those that really crush it is the ones that crush it, they know the right words at the right time. They know exactly what to say, when to say it, and how to make it count. I've done huge amounts of work and research in the psychology of influence and persuasion, and understanding what it really does up here in neuro-linguistic kind of pathways in terms of how the brain thinks. But none of that really helps people in the real world. Mm-hmm. What helps people in the real world is like, yeah, I get it, but like, what do I say? What do I say? So the book is 23 sequences of words that talk straight towards the subconscious brain, that help people make decisions more easily. It helps people respond more easily. And as a result of which, if you utilize some of the words in this book with the right levels of integrity, then what you can do is get people to see things from a different point of view. You can perhaps make asks more easily. You can overcome indecision more easily, and you can gain more confidence in many of life's critical conversations. So that's what the book was written to be able to do. And I'm proud of how well this book's done. It's like a genuine bestseller, but I think about that statement. We've done nearly 2 million copies around the world, and it reminds me that people are good at buying books. That's what I actually really think when I think about that bestseller piece. And what people aren't so good at is reading and then taking action on what's inside those books. So my challenge to myself when I produced this book was to write the biggest small book possible. Is how can I create something that you can get cover to cover in around an hour, fill it full of giant principles, but disguise them as examples so that people understand the principle, and then in turn put white space around it, help people feel smart at every step, and give people something they can put into action straight away and implement and use and get experience from it. And that's what we did with the book. And I think if there's anything I love most about it, given that we put it into the world in 2017 and we're now, 5 years past that point, is every single day a stranger writes to me and says, I took something from the book, I used it, it helped, it worked, thank you, in some way, shape, or form. And it's that empowering piece, that everything from helping a mother have better conversations with their children, to helping a husband get somebody else, to get child to tidy bedrooms, or helping a CEO be able to close a giant deal. Like all of these examples have existed, and it's been a lot of fun to be on the receiving end of people sharing their story based on the words they picked up from the book.
It's a really clever concept because, as you said, there's a lot of readers, but actually how to implement them. But also, when you've been able to take different pieces of those words and have them go into relationships, have them go into how you speak to your child, into your business, into your sales, what would you say has been one of the most impactful way that you've taken your term of magic words and been able to implement them to create something incredible?
I don't know if there's any giant aha moments. I think the bigger moments are in industries where people have really resisted the fact that they wanted to be salesy or want to feel like they're pressuring anybody. And we've done stuff with nurse practitioners and people in the medical world that need to help people make smarter decisions about their health. And working in those kind of environments and actually empowering people with word choices that then means they go from being I can't do that to I can do it and everybody wins. Those ones are some of the most empowering, and probably even more fun if we're looking for a critical scenario right now is I took the book and you probably can't see it there, but for those on video right now is I turned it into an illustrated children's book in the last 18 months called The Magic of Words, and we took the core principles from it, distilled it down even simpler, and this book now is being used in schools to help manage conflict resolution in the classroom, and it's being used to help parents understand children with autism. And I never had any of those intentions, but it's those beautiful little victories that come out where you're like, wow, those impacts are cool. So if anything, I started producing the work because I wanted to help people get better commercial results in sales conversations where they didn't see themselves as salespeople. What I've learned to be even more empowering is, as people have taken this, is how it shows up in life and in leadership and in relationships, and people have used it in all of those areas. And now I'm getting invited to help manage big merger transactions, etc., with large companies that can't find a way to agree in the middle, and political groups, etc. So it's fun getting into worlds that I never had any quote unquote experience in, but now get invited to go and share what I know from this world to help into worlds that are brand new to me.
Amazing. It made me smile actually with the kids book. So I used to be a tennis coach, and I had this incredible set of phrases that I used to use, and I could get them to do anything. I mean, it was great because they would go home and their parents would say, how are we able to do that? So I love that you've been able to actually impact that into schools. I think that would be a big game changer. Now, I'd love to jump into a few examples. One of my favorite phrases from the book is, how open-minded are you? And can you tell us a little bit behind the psychology behind that and why that's influence rather than persuasion or sales?
Okay. Well, let's just take the first thing. When you say, why is that influence rather than persuasion or sales? I think influence, persuasion, and sales can quite often all be the same thing. Sales is an outcome. It isn't what you do. It's the outcome of what you do. Influence and persuasion are often the same thing. Sometimes you need to persuade somebody to influence them, and sometimes you influence through persuasion, and they sit very closely to each other. I think the one we want to be careful of mixing into this mix is manipulation. And I think it was the great Peter Parker, aka Spider-Man, that once said, with great power comes great responsibility, right? The same is true with how we use the power to be able to influence others. And the difference in my mind between influence and manipulation is merely integrity. Most people want to be led. Most people want to be influenced. Most people will actually enjoy the fact that somebody is helping them through a complex decision. And that's a position of responsibility that you've got to be prepared to say. If you help somebody make a choice, you want to hope that they're still happy with that choice the next day, the day after that, the month after that, the year after that. And you're not going to get it right all the time, but your intent and your integrity around that should always be focused on the fact that you care about the result of the result of the result of the result, like further down the track. And I think if you stay there and you give a damn of the outcome of your influence, then you act with integrity and you stay away from manipulation. So that little segue, let's come back to the words open-minded and why they're so powerful. In simple forms, if I was to ask a room of 1,000 people who in this room would see themselves as open-minded, like 900 hands shoot to the sky. And I'm certain the other 100 hands wouldn't raise their hands regardless of what I offered, like cash, cookies, cake, anything. They're not raising their hands. So what do I take from that? Is I learned that the whole world likes to see themselves as open-minded. Because what's the alternative? The alternative is something nobody would choose to be. So we now have that fact. You take that fact and you apply it to a principle. A conversational principle is that the person who's asking the questions is in control of the conversation. And stick that principle to the fact that the whole world likes to see themselves as open-minded. What we just created was a rejection-free opening formula. We created a way that you could ask just about anything, and it be pulley as opposed to pushy. So if you'd ask somebody how open-minded would you be, it's almost impossible for them to say no. Like, how open-minded would you to us spending some more time together? How open-minded would you be for us being able to, do this project around the house in the next couple of weekends? How open-minded would you be to understanding how we differ from your competition? How open-minded would you be to learning how we can save you some money? How open-minded would you be to learning how we can create you more exposure? Like, whatever it might be, to the point that whoever's listening right now is like, how open-minded would you be to using the words, how open-minded are you more often? Right? It's a simple sequence of words that gets you to the conversation. See, people often think the conversations are hard. Yet my experience says is that the majority of people are pretty good at getting being in the conversation. They find it difficult to get invited to the conversation or to create an invite to the conversation. Think about it from a dating point of view. Lots of people are good on first dates. They're just terrible at getting first dates.
This is very true.
And words like how open-minded are you can put you into a situation where you can flirt an idea. And the other person can say, tell me some more about that, in a way that is comfortable for both parties. You create a play space in the middle.
You've mentioned a really interesting topic is how do you use these words in dating, in relationships? I mean, I can see a smile on your face for anyone listening to the audio version of this, but there has to be some really interesting the ways that you can apply this in dating that is going to get you some more dates.
Yeah, there is. And we can go back like further on this really is, and we can talk about critical conversations across the board, whether this is looking to be able to have a meaningful conversation with a loved one, whether it's looking to influence your next business transaction, or whether it's something out in your community. Is every successful conversation really needs 3 key ingredients, and it needs them in this exact same order if you want to reach the outcomes that you're looking for. And the 3 ingredients are firstly curiosity. Behind curiosity is empathy, and then behind empathy is courage. Those are the 3 ingredients that are going to help you influence anybody in any given moment. But why those words and in that precise order? Well, the curiosity piece is always the best place to start a conversation. So in a relationship world, is if you're showing up with certainty, you're going to create uncertainty in the other person. So if you show up to a conversation like you're hot shit, you show up to a conversation like you know all the answers, you show up to a conversation like you think of something, the other person's natural human instinct is like, really? We're going there? And it creates a friction. It creates an uncertainty. It's strangely ironic that uncertainty is created when somebody is certain. Yet if you want to create certainty in the other person's outcome, then curiosity is your tool to get you there, because curiosity earns you context. And context is the missing ingredient of most conversations that exist in today's world. Like, there's just no context, yet there's this ton of content. And content without context is merely noise, right? So in a noisy world, get the context first. And if you remain curious for long enough, you get to empathy. People are like, oh, I need to be more empathetic. Well, no, you need to be more curious. If you're more curious, you get towards being empathetic. And the best definition I've heard from empathy is from an author friend of mine by the name of John Acuff. And John Acuff describes empathy as to care about what the people you care about care about. Now, that's so simple, it's freaking profound, right? To care about what the people you care about care about. And when you look at your last text message thread, or you look at your last sent emails, more often than not, it's I, me, my communication. It's self-centered. I was hoping, I was looking. Like, it's very much looking towards the fact that this is what I care about. Whereas what we're truly looking to be able to do is to get to care about what the other person cares about. Now, in all forms of relationships, the best conversations are never when it's you versus them. And that could be that I'm better than you, I'm more successful than you. It could be that peacocking my dad is better than your dad conversation. It could be any form of argument that creates conflict, but that's what happens when it's you versus the other person. What you're really looking to try and say is it's not you versus them, it's you and them versus it, whatever that might be. So in a relationship setting is you're looking to find shared interest, you're looking to find common ground through being curious for long enough, not so you can tell them your story of the same thing that they have an interest in, but so what you can do is take this sum of parts and then look at where you might want to go next together and see if you can create a better future, like a new normal that has been created from there, and empathy will get you there. And there's a button that exists inside the head of every decision maker that I call the show me that you know me button. And I think the second you trigger that button in somebody else, the guard goes down. This becomes a safe place for us to move forward. And that's where you need courage. So people think success in business, success in sales, etc., comes from knowing that if you do not ask, you do not get. Now, although that fact is true, if you ask before you should, you're pushy, you're rude, you're obnoxious, you're all the things that everybody doesn't want to be. But if you're curious for long enough to reach a position of empathy, you hit the show me that you know me button, and then you're courageous enough again to be able to make a big ask. Now you're helpful, you're kind, you're on the same side, you're pulling in the same direction. So yes, you do have to be able to ask for the things that you want in life, but you've got to do that dance in that order. The next thing to understand on this in terms of how it plays out in every area of life is just to remember another 5 steps, which is that if you want better conversations, they're all fueled by questions, because questions create conversations. Conversations lead to relationships. Relationships lead opportunities, and those opportunities can create sales, actions, outcomes, life, whatever you want to choose. But it has to go in that order. It starts with questions. People want this finish line thing over here, but they forget that all the work is questions, conversations, relationships. Questions, conversations, relationships. So that's all I got.
No, it's interesting. I'm sure that you probably saved some relationships for anyone listening. But it's great how you've actually been able to take those concepts and create it step by step, but also very much so in the emphasis of it's not just about the conversation, it's also how do you get that, and is the timing right, and are the intentions right there? So I appreciate for you deep diving into it. Now, I'm sure you've created a lot of curiosity from what you've just said. So I'd love to jump in and talk about what else is inside this book. If someone's listening and thinking, oh my goodness, you have just blown my mind, what should their next steps be, and how should they start implementing what they've read as well?
So you're asking me for a couple of examples that people can implement straight away, some things that they can utilize in all areas of life. Well, let's pick some simple ones, right? So we did the open-minded thing as a rejection-free opening formula. Well, let's do another rejection-free opening formula, because I think that's where lots of people have difficulty. And why don't I give a sequence of words you can use to get just about anybody to take a look at just about anything. And if I wanted somebody to consider an idea, instead of asking them directly to consider the idea, I'd preface the ask with the words, I'm not sure if it's for you. Now, if I preface and ask with the words, I'm not sure if it's for you, the little voice inside the other person's head does 2 things if you want to run it down in slow-mo. The first thing it does is it says, well, I'll be the judge of that. Like, it takes full personal responsibility for a decision that needs to be made, and it's mine to make. And then the second thing that happens is curiosity is piqued. If I say, I'm not sure if it's for you, Sabrina, your voice is like, what is it? What's the thing?
I'm curious, I'm ready.
Right? What you then do is you stick a 3-letter word on the end of that, a 3-letter word that typically should be avoided. And most people don't understand just how powerful this word is. And it's the word but. What most people think the word but does is it negates what was said prior. That's what we're taught. That's what often shows up in training courses, is that but negates. It's like if you're on the receiving end of some feedback where somebody says, I know you're trying your best and you're doing what you thought was right and you're bringing the experience from your past role, but, and it doesn't negate what was said prior. All it does is shift the focus to next. And it moves where you decide to be able to point your attention. So it moves your attention towards the ask or to the next piece of information. So if I wanted somebody to consider my idea, I'd preface it with the words, I'm not sure if it's for you, but. Now look at that simply. Hey, I'm not sure if it's for you, but I was hoping to go to the game this weekend and wondered if you wanted to join me. Hey, I'm not sure if it's for you, but I've got some ideas that I think could really help elevate your business, and I wondered whether you want to sit down and have a coffee about it. Hey, I'm not sure if it's for you, but I think there's some ways we could save you some money here right now with a few simple tweaks and changes. It becomes pulley again as opposed to pushy. Somebody's like, well, tell me some more about that. And in that first example I gave about coming to the game, is you also could find out, well, like, hey, I'd love to do something with you, but not this weekend. Or I'd love to do something with you, but no way I'm going to a sports game. Right? Is you get to be able to find yourself in a conversation and people can insert real objections or real friction that you can do stuff with. So there's one example. And let's jump to the other end of conversational literacy and talk about when you want to tell somebody what to do. So there are times in life where you just want to give some of the most direct advice on the planet. You just want to say, here's what you should do. You want to move to tell mode. Could be with an employee, teammate, colleague, co-worker, child, friend. Could be with a client, prospect, any of those things. You just want to say, just do this. But you can't tell people what to do, because telling people what to do is rude. And people don't like to be told what to do, but they often want to know what to do without feeling like they're being told what to do. So this stuff is all kind of real. So how do you do that? Well, what you do is you apply another piece of psychology to it, which is that human beings are a lot like sheep, in that we are very happy to follow a crowd. Like safety in numbers is a real thing, which is why we are far happier to believe 47 strangers on a Yelp review than we will like a recommendation from an old school friend, right? We're way more likely to be able to follow that recommendation. So you take the safety in numbers thing, you take the fact that people don't like to be told what to do, but they like to know what to do, and you like to tell people what to do without them feeling like they're being told what to do. And next time you want to tell somebody what to do without them having any of that struggle, just tell them what most people would do. And when you say, here's what most people would do in your circumstances, little voice kicks off in their head and says, I'm most people. So I think I'm going to choose that. There's no way you can stop me. And I know there'll be people listening in right now, like maybe 4, 5, 6 even, that are like, that would never work on me. It just wouldn't, because I'm not most people. And you know what I'd say to those people right now is I'd just say, don't be like most people. And you can use the same words to split an audience. You can use the same words for people to say, I'm in that camp or I'm out that camp. And if you hold enough emotional intelligence to know which side of the line you're speaking towards, you can instruct people freely for them to act in a way that they felt was free, even though that what you did is put the guardrails up, the bumpers at the bowling alley, and said that way. So there's a couple of examples. I'm not sure if it's for you, but, and then the insertion of the words most people would be just 2 of the 23 examples in the book that I think are pretty darn useful.
You're continuously raising curiosity here. I'm sure everyone's like, what are the other 21? Now, one of the really interesting parts was I was reading through this book, and I've listened to it quite a few times. And the more I really understood the phrases and the psychology behind it, I was like, my business partner uses this on me. And, previously he'd recommended the book. What would you do and how would you navigate if you're passing this out to lots of different people, recommendations, but then they start to pick out your language of behavior around words?
When somebody gets a better result in your world because they say please and thank you, and they show up with kindness, and they behave in a way that society has demonstrated as being a reasonable way to operate as a human to get more from other people, you're not like, who taught you that? Why are you doing that kind thing on me? It's just an accepted way of being. And what happens when people move through trying to deliver my words to then turn it into their words and their way of life, and it becomes just natural to them? There's no forcing of this. It doesn't feel like something's being done to you. What happens is that you got done the thing you were looking to get done a little bit easier. The conversation was freer. It's like a lubricant to conversation some of the time, is that you just get to be able to get through with less friction. And we have this fear in our heads that if we're going to help somebody to do something, then we're evil. Or if your business partner has read the book and then like, he's going to do that thing on me, like, and it's not real when it's done right and it's done for the right purpose. But it is fun when you take a book like this and you work it within a team, because you catch each other doing stuff, you jam on it in a fun way. You almost go too far the wrong way, where it's like, how many times can we use the words most people in the next 12 hours? And it finds itself in every email, and it finds itself in cross-office chatter, and it finds itself at the bar that night out. It finds itself like in the grocery store. It shows up everywhere. And then you realize that was a bit rich. I probably pushed that a little bit too far. But like anything from a training point of view, you get muscle memory, you get retention, you start to find from the experiences, where did it feel natural? Where did it work? Where did you get a better outcome? And it is a joy, right? With the quantity of these books that exist out in the world, and then the hearsay that's come off the back of it, then I see the work showing up everywhere. And it's really fun because you can see it and be like, was that from the book? And then when you just dig into their copy a little bit more, or you hang around in their video script for a little bit longer, you're like, yeah, it's from the book. Got it.
You want to get a proud dad moment there.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is. But yeah, you go from the curiosity of like, oh, is that coincidence? So then you're like, oh, there's too many clues. That's not coincidence. But like, bravo. And like, there's no call out. There's no like.
It's a compliment, I think. If anything, it shows that your work is reaching a lot of people.
Well, I think it's great to even just wrap your head around it that way, is that it's, my book is famous and I'm not. And that's a choice. Like, I like it that way around, is that this little book is far reaching in the world. Loads of people know it. And very few people that have read it or owned the book have any idea what I look like, any idea of what my life is. I don't actively look to be able to build a big social following or anything on purpose that way around. It's a choice. And what it then does is it gives permission for the work to show up, just like many actors or TV series, etc., that exist today. You know, there's parts of somebody else's style in their style, and people are like, oh, I love how she does that. And you're like, yeah, it's like highly influenced from this person back then. And it's fun just seeing how humanity grows, because my work's got huge influence from other people's. You know, I'm a student of Dale Carnegie's work since I was like this high. Huge study of Robert Cialdini's work for a significant period of time. Deep into some psychology stuff. So everybody's piece of work that you think is just theirs is never just theirs anyway, right? Is everything is an amalgamation of experience and research. So yeah, it's fun seeing it show up in the world. But I wouldn't be afraid in any way of like doing something to somebody or them doing something to you because they know how this.
Oh no, we have so much fun with it. I always say that when we catch each other out, and it's the same actually, which makes you probably an amazing trainer as well, is that you can bring that fun element into it. And like you said, when you have muscle memories and you're throwing around these words in the team, they're like, I know what you just did there, but it worked. I'm going to use that next time. And one of the major parts of what you're doing is growing that and building it into teams and training others how to do it. So if you were thinking, if you're a leader of a team right now, how could you start implementing your book into your own team as well?
I get asked this question a lot, so I've thought about the answer a lot, given that I preach that the worst time to think about the thing you're going to say is in the moment when you're saying it, right? So my answer for how to implement this is probably sort of threefold, really. One is repetition of the material. So if you want to teach this through the team, do things like grab the audio book, make it something that you listen to together, put it on repeat. Don't say this is the book that I read. It's almost something that you have to keep washing yourself with over a period of time. So run the whole immersion and repeat listen piece. Now, then when it comes to how do you then roll it out through your team is pick a focus, pick a single sequence of words, or pick a situation that is repeating in your business needs at that period of time, and look to be able to make the examples real for your organization. So make them situational or make them right for your business, and jam that almost like it's a workshop. So, okay, how do we use the words most people in our business? What are all the examples? Let's workshop this together. Like, who's got more? Can we get to 100? Let's think about the entire customer experience. Let's think about from the first phone call. Let's think about, before the first phone call. Let's think about in copy. Let's think about on our website. Let's think about in our autoresponders. Whole thing. And see how many you can come up with. Because what we're doing is we're flexing the muscle of experience that way around. And then you got to go try this stuff in the real world. And I'd say go try it in low stakes environments. Go have fun with it when you're at the restaurant or speaking to your telecommunications company on the phone about your bill being too much money, or looking to be able to have a conversation with a stranger at the school gates if you're taking the kids to school, or like, I don't care what it is, take it into environments that aren't life or death or don't affect your bank balance instantly first. Go play in those environments, then bring it into your workplace, and then debrief like crazy. Debrief after critical conversations and ask yourself, what did I like best? And then what would I do next time? What did I like best? What would I do next time? And give yourself the gift of saying that you're on a journey of continued self-improvement. So yeah, really those sort of 4 steps is firstly, keep immersing in the material. Secondly, look to be able to create examples that work around situations or moments that exist in your business. Third, then go take it to play space before you take it into the workplace. And then when you bring it to the workplace, fourth, be brave enough to do proper debrief of, how do we implement this? What do we learn from it? And do that together. Do that in a format that you can all learn from each other. Because this is a messy skill and art form. It's not, I got it right and I got it wrong. It's all the gray space. And I think creating gray space to learn it is the safest way for you to be able to do it without thinking you've got it right, and give yourself the permission of knowing that you've never mastered it.
It's really fun that you say that. I can tell that you're a speaker, because a lot of the way that you're explaining this is very excitable, and it's almost kid-like about, hey, these are some exciting magic words. How can you implement them into what you're doing? And how do you have a little bit of fun with that? And I've watched a few on YouTube of your speaking events, and you're flown all over the world to huge events. And one of the biggest captivating moments is when you go on stage, you automatically have everyone's attention. Everyone's very engaged in listening. And even if they haven't heard of you, you're able to capture that very quickly. So how would you say that you're able to use these words when you're on stage in order to really create that rapport and, in a sense, attentive listening from the audience as well?
Okay, it's a big question. We probably need 3 hours of interview to really dive it. If there's a lesson for everybody listening in right now, particularly for anybody who's delivering presentations in front of a group, whether that is you speaking to 6 people at a birthday party or you're addressing an audience of 600 at a corporate event, is the same rules apply. It's never a speech to an audience. It's a conversation with a quantity of people, whether that's 600 or 6. It just so happens that is a one-to-one conversation with a quantity of people at exactly the same time. And I think that's a mistake that many people have when they're delivering presentations. They speak to them like they're a block, like they make them a singular thing in the first place. And like it's the second that they are grouped as a group of 600, they don't know how to play as a group of 600. They know how to play as themselves. Whereas if you communicate to them as individuals, then now what you've got is you've just got this pathway of 600 one-on-one connections at exactly the same time. So now we're talking about the exact same rules. And how do you drive engagement from a stage environment when the numbers are bigger is huge use of rhetorical question, huge gray space in the questions that you then drive towards one-on-one individuals in the audience, knowing that you're asking it of them, but you're actually asking it of all of them. Inclusive language as well. Like, here's a giant faux pas that I see people do all the time. And now I've told you this, you're not going to be able to not see it. Is almost every event on the planet, somebody will say, how many of you, and then we'll raise a hand, looking to be able to create some form of audience participation. Think about just how ridiculous that is. You're trying to have a conversation with this person here, and it's all of this person, and you ask a how many of you question, which says you just invited everybody in the room not to answer your question, but to look around the room. That's what you actually just instructed them to do when you say how many of you. When you change the words, make a simple swap, and you just say who in this room. Now what you've got is you've still got 600 sets of eyes coming in on you and everybody participating in the same way. You can now say, well, take a look around, see who else thinks like you do. But now you're bringing everybody with you. Whereas the how many question is you pushing everybody away from you, and you actually created a divide. So I think more often than not, it's where people try to think that communicating to an audience is different. It's not. It's exactly the same. It's just the responsibility of the fact that you are having more one-on-one conversations at the exact same time. I think doing that allows you to show up and meet more people where they're at.
You're right. I'm always going to notice that going forwards. And
you'll watch the behavior. You're like, they're going to go, how many? You're going to be like, oh, why do they do that? And you're going to see them around, and you're going to actually feel the break in connection from that moment of everybody in the room to the speaker, and then they got to work it back.
No, amazing. Well, Phil, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sure you've definitely created some curiosity and intriguement. What could the next steps be in terms of someone who's heard this and think, I want to, read the book, or if they'd like to connect with you a little bit further as well?
Sure. The book is available everywhere you can grab books. So if you want to go to Amazon, go there. If you want it on Audible, go there. Want it on Kindle, go to your local bookstore, any of those things, then you can find the book just about anywhere. When it comes to being able to learn more about me, other services we offer, come to philmjones.com. come by my website. You can find links out also to all the social channels that we are available on. So if you have a preference, you'll find where to find me there. If you want to continue the conversation in some way, typically either Instagram or LinkedIn are the two platforms where I show up as me rather than just repurposing content. And very happy to answer questions there, continue the conversation, find out what's been useful for anybody who's listening to our little conversation here today.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. I hope you have an incredible rest of the day. For anyone who's listening, I'm sure you're going to be listening to this episode a few times, taking lots of notes, and hopefully implementing some of those within your same day-to-day. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.